Hello, welcome to the Stubborn Tortoise podcast. I'm Donna Pazdera. So this was kind of a big weekend for me this past weekend, and I'll just get right into it. Of course, it was my birthday weekend, which was Saturday. There goes one of my cats in the background. Great. Um, but we'll get to that part in a second. I had a really big surprise. Friday afternoon, I went to get my bib for the next day and, pick up my t-shirt. Oh yeah, I can show you the t-shirt real quick. Those of you who are watching this on YouTube and who might care. This makes me really self-conscious when I do this with video. I don't know why. Well, of course I know why. It's like, I actually recorded a version of this yesterday, and I had just driven back from Huntsville and was really exhausted, and I looked at it, and so, but anyways, I'm just kind of vain that way. Anyway, so yeah, picked up my t-shirt, and then I was going to stick around for the pre-race briefing, which I was almost going to leave because it's kind of like, pretty much know what the deal is, having done these races, quite often. But my friend PJ kind of looked at me and he's like, I think you should stay. And I'm like, okay, I mean, it's what, 6 o'clock on a Friday night. I mean, not a whole lot, not a whole lot else going on. So sure, I'll stay. And so I did. And I got a really big surprise because when the race director and owner of Tejas Trails, Chris McWaters, began the briefing, he started talking about this award that they were giving out, and that the person who was receiving it wasn't able to attend Bandera. And then he said she, and then I'm like, okay, I didn't get to attend Bandera because I had Hundo and Babe's son moving in with me for the semester that weekend. And so I didn't get to go. And I'm like, she, what is this? And so then it kind of became a blur, because I was just kind of like, I was trying to hang on to what he was talking about. In fact, I wasn't even aware of this, but it's an award. Okay. And it's the Dan Keats Award. And I'm going to read to you what Chris read, which was written by Joe Prusatis, the original owner and founder of Tejas Trails. So I'm just going to read this off of my phone. This is kind of exactly how Chris did it. To understand Dan Keats completely, you might have to actually have known Dan O. I don't know what that means, but anyway, he was a live wire with a cutting wit and had tested people in a certain way. I knew him first as a trail running coach and later as a friend. He was struggling to get his body to work for him without realizing at the time that he was dealing with ALS, which is Lou Gehrig's syndrome. We did a few races together, including Bighorn and Pikes Peak. And at Bandera, the manager of our main aid, and he was the manager at our main aid station at Crossroads. I remember that place. He had a way of pissing me off and getting me to laugh at myself at the same time. And it's not that he was, a macho or hard driven so much as he just made us look inside ourselves. Okay. And he also challenged us to do more, to live better, and to really think about what we were doing and why. He was a rare person and bigger than life. He was real. And 3 years later, he'd be gone, his body dissolving around his already active mind. We all loved Dano. I surely did and still do. I'm saddened by the fact that he's no longer with us in body, but he remains with me always in spirit. And this is the award to recognize somebody who we feel best follows in the spirit, someone who represents what we feel is a good and needed, is a good ambassador. This is what happens when you're over 42. You can't see up close very well, so you have to kind of hold things away from you. So here we go. Anyway, so somebody who's an ambassador of our sport, and who pushes and challenges and doesn't mind the work on or the time, and just gets in and goes with it. The spirit of Dan Keats is our highest award. And so I'm kind of getting a little choked up here. That's an incredible honor, and I cannot tell you how happy I am that I am recognized for 2022 for this award. I'm not going to pull it off of my living room wall, but I was given this very large metal sculpture of a warrior, and on the back of it are the names of the people who preceded me in receiving the award. So I have to give it back next year to the next winner. Because when I first looked at it, I'm like, wow, that's big. And then I realized, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have to give this back. Also, interestingly, my friend PJ got it last year. I didn't even know about this award, I guess because I just don't pay attention always. But nonetheless, that was an incredible surprise. And it makes me feel great about what I do. And I do believe in this trail running experience, and do feel like I am an ambassador to the sport. I mean, I can't tell you how many people I've dragged with me, to go try out these trail races, and especially Tejas Trails. I know there's a lot of companies out there. I know this sounds like an ad. They did not pay me. But they really are, I think, the best race outfit in the ones that I've experienced in Texas. And that says a lot. I mean, because it's a pretty competitive, field, I guess, so, and, there's some races that other people put on that I really enjoy. I mean, I'm not going to, it's not like, somebody else can't do something. But I just really, I don't know, there's something about a Tejas race that makes me feel like I'm part of the family. And even if it's your first time, and it's just a very different experience than you'll find at a lot of other races. I think the other thing I really like about Tejas races is it doesn't matter how slow you are. They'll be there waiting for you at the finish, provided, of course, you don't miss the cutoff, hey, that little thing. But yeah, because I mean, I know there's some races that I've gone to and they're small, and they're run out of like Austin, and it seems like the people that are tracking, this is nothing wrong, it's just that I'm not an especially competitive runner, so I'm out there more for the experience, I guess. And in some of these races that are held out of these companies out of Austin, it just feels like they only really care about the fast people. And I can even remember one time being at a race at a 50K. I was trying to atone for a DNF. And I was one of 10, what do you call it, 50Kers. And I didn't realize it was that small of a race. And I got lost, mainly because they put up green ribbons in the trees. And if you're out there in the dark, and they were not reflective. So it was really hard to see anything. So I got lost. And of course that was adding time on. And so long story short, they ended up closing the course on me. Well, they went home. But before that, I remember a guy at one of the aid stations, and he's like, "Well, you are running, aren't you?" And I was like, "Wow, that's insulting." It's like, I'm trying, but see, sometimes you get to these smaller races, and I feel like people, they only really want to honor the fast people, and and there's nothing wrong with that. But I do feel like, hey, there's room for everybody in here. So, and again, and I feel like that's the thing that I like the most about these races. And this is why I like trail racing, and especially with these guys, is because, there's the slow, pokey people out there like me. And then you got, really fast people but the funny part is a lot of the fast people I've met, and this doesn't necessarily always hold true, for all race companies, but at least the ones I've met at Tejas, they're really humble, and they're really generous and giving and kind. I can tell you that on Saturday, just to kind of fast forward for a second, Matt Smith, who won the 50 miler at Rocky Raccoon, he, after he won his race, he went back and worked the Damnation aid station with his girlfriend, Elizabeth. And, and he was, pouring water for me, asking me how I was, if I needed anything, and, high-fived me as I was on my way back, out to the finish. And I just thought that was really cool. I mean, that's just the kind of guy he is. And I think that's how a lot of trail runners behave. I mean, they're very supportive, and they will look out for you if, you look like you're in trouble. I mean, not every single one of them is, but a lot of them are. And I think that's why I really like this sport. Anyway, so again, many, many thanks to the folks at Tejas for their consideration and for sending this my way. It's really exciting, and I am happy to continue doing the work that I do. And I know it's kind of different, because I've got this career, and I feel like sometimes people don't really understand that this is also a vocation, and so it's something I mean, yeah, it's a hobby, but it's also a vocation. And I think it teaches us a lot about ourselves. And so I'm going to get right into the story of Saturday, teaching us about ourselves. I learned a lot about myself on Saturday. You'd think you'd know it all at this point. No, I don't. Yeah, so for my 61st birthday, I'm really I'm trying to own up to the age thing without being coy anymore. I'm just kind of like, oh God, just rip the Band-Aid off and just tell people how old you are. If you're kind, you'll say, no, there's no way you look that old. And the others are like, oh. So it's kind of funny, but anyway. Yeah, so I decided to run a 50K for my birthday. What a stupid idea. Well, nah, I haven't done a 50K in about 3 years, and did not train very well for this one at all. I mean, I was kind of relying on, getting through that Brazos Bend marathon, which was an ultra 28 and a half, in December. And then at the end of December, I did the snowdrop run where I pretty much covered about 26 miles over the course of 6 hours. So, I felt like, well, and then January came, and of course, January was really cold, and I don't like running when it's cold. I mean, unless it's a race or something, it's just really hard to motivate me to go, out of my warm bed and, someplace to go run long. It's like, so I really wasn't very well prepared, but I knew mentally I kind of still had it. But anyway, so I got myself to the venue that morning, Saturday, and I ran into a guy named Bob who was from Houston, and he offered to let me put my drop bag under their canopy with his other friends from Houston, including this one guy. I don't know his name, but he was really nice, and he did the 100K at Rocky the week before, and yeah, he was very supportive, and Bob was really cool. It was his first ultra, and so I the one thing I like about these rolling starts, or these kind of soft starts where you're not like chomping at the bit at the finish or the start finish, is that you can just sort of wander out there onto the course and it's fine. It's like, as long as your chip registers, you're great. I'm not really one for these, gaggle of people, that adrenaline rush, because I usually end up getting really nervous and stepping off the trail most of the time to let everybody pass me. But anyway, so I set out for my first loop. It does consist of 2 loops. The first one is about 14 and change, and then the second one's about 16, and 16 and change. So yeah, so I think it ends up, it does, believe me, it adds up to 31 miles, which is a 50K for those of you not able to work that out in your mind. Fairly unspectacular first loop, although, I felt pretty good. I was able to run some of it. The course there, as I've mentioned before, is a little flatter than some of them, but it doesn't mean that it's easy, because it's not, because you've got all these roots and there's some rocks, but it's not like that crazy rocky stuff like you get at Camp Eagle and at Bandera. But I mean, there's still stuff, so. But anyway, I went through, and then I was listening to podcasts. I was listening to Mark Maron's WTF podcast, where he had interviewed the late film director Peter Bogdanovich, and it was a really interesting interview. And I was really kind of getting into, listening to what this guy was talking about. And he was talking about doing movies, or, writing movies, writing books, watching movies. He started out as like a film critic, and which is funny because that's actually how I started out in journalism. I was a music and film writer. So I was like, wow, this is fun, and then the more as the miles kind of kept piling on, I got to mile 10 and I'm like, I don't know, I'm not really feeling this today. And I don't know, I think I might just go watch some movies and maybe do some writing. And then I'm like, that's really stupid. But then I was just like, Then I started convincing myself that I could, just have a DNF, take that DNF, even though it's your birthday and it's, you've never DNF'd a 50K and all this stuff. And so I pretty much had my mind made up for the next 4 miles, and I was just going to drop, and that was that. And my legs were starting to bother me. They were hurting, because you got to really pick them up or you trip over roots. And so I got to the start finish and, looked at the aid station people and, I said, I think I'm going to drop. And then I saw Becky Spalding, our medic, if you will, nurse for, who volunteers for the race and is also a buddy of mine. And I said, Becky, I think I'm going to drop. And she's like, why? I'm like, my legs hurt. And she just looked at me and she's like, that's not a good reason. It's your birthday. You can't, you got to finish what you started. And in my mind, I was like, yeah, I probably just need someone to kick me in the ass and just make me go back out there. So, which is what I did. I did get like about a half grilled cheese sandwich, which was really good. Thank you, aid station, start finish aid station. That was really good. And I normally don't like grilled cheese, but anyway, sorry, there's something coming down my street. It sounded like tin cans rattling and I didn't know what that was, but I don't know, you probably couldn't hear it. Anyway, so, and it was starting to get cooler. Oh yeah, it was like raining off and on during the first loop. And that was kind of hard. And but I had done my, my little layering trick. And in fact, I took off my long sleeve before the first mile because it was kind of warm at the beginning. It was like in the 50s. And, once you get moving, you don't really want to be sweating. But I could tell that it was starting to cool off, because it was like a front had come through. And so I, smart person that I am, because I always bring everything to a trail race because you never know what you're going to need. I got myself in gear and changed out of my wet clothing in my upper body, and just kind of got my mind right a little bit. And I could tell that the temperatures were dropping, when I stepped out of the restroom, and I was like, ugh. And thank God I had brought a like a beanie, like a polyester beanie or whatever with you. That seems to be my lucky beanie. I love that thing. It's gotten me through a lot of races. And it looks cute. So what can I say? But anyway, I got that. And then I got my raincoat because I have this anorak that you can, it's one of those packable things. So I just, folded it up and stuffed it in my hydration pack just in case it got a lot colder, because I knew it took me about 4 hours to get through the first loop, which was pretty much, and this was the other thing that persuaded me, because I was like, okay, dummy, you didn't it didn't take you like 1,000 years to get in, you're kind of on target. So, and I figured the second loop was going to take me a little longer, and I kind of figured I would come in around 9. But I killed a good 30 minutes just between the loops, just trying to get myself dressed and, taking off wet clothing and putting on dry on a damp body is not as easy as it seems. And some of you may understand. But anyway, I got myself pulled together. So, 30 minutes later is like about noon at this point. And so I thought, well, all right, I'm going to be coming in around 5. So, and at least it'd still be daylight. I did bring my headlamp in case, because I've learned, but mercifully I did not need it. So anyway, I set out, and the second loop is, as I mentioned, is longer. And oh my God, it felt like it was taking forever to get to that first aid station. I'm not even sure what the breakdown was, but on the first loop, it's like 3.5, but you're running a little shorter course. It was probably like 6 miles or something. I don't know. God, it took forever. But along the way, I met this woman in a kind of like this real cute running skirt and these yellow, like neon yellow calf sleeves and a short sleeve t-shirt and a hydration pack, and I'm like, wow. And she was hiking it and I was starting to hike, I was trying to run and hike and it was, but she was doing a 50 miler and had tripped and fallen like 4 times during the first loop, just because it was in the dark. And she said her knees were hurting and she was really, suffering. And so we just started talking, and she's like, I'm so glad to have talked to somebody because first 2 loops are so hard because I had nobody, and I'm like, I know. I said, I didn't meet anyone either on the first loop. Of course, I also was listening to podcasts and music. So there you go. Um, sometimes, one of the other things though about these staggered starts is that sometimes it can be kind of lonely. So, you're not, that's the only downside I think to it, is that you're not, making summer camp friends and stuff like that, along the way. And so you have to kind of make your adventure. But anyway, so we ended up hanging together and she was like, if you want to go run, go ahead. I'm like, I was starting to feel like the Tin Man. So it was like, all right, I can handle this. And so anyway, so we just hiked together, and she was telling me that she's from, I think Irving, Texas. Irving, is that right? Up by, no, Fort Worth, sorry. And then she had her husband and 4 kids, and her parents were with her. She was 38, and her name is Tiffany. Sorry if I didn't mention that already. Super cool person. We just really enjoyed, chatting with each other, and she had a pretty good walking pace. I mean, I can hike pretty well, but she was a little fast for me. And I think at one point I was talking too much, wasn't looking where I was going, and I tripped on a rock. I don't know, who knows. All I know is I'm sliding through the sand like Pete Rose going into home base, and or home plate, and I jammed my fingers. So those of you who can, of course, it's my middle finger. Anyway, yeah, it doesn't look as bad as I thought it could, but I just didn't realize that I had done that, because throughout the race my knuckles started turning like gray or black, on the, like on this part, the not the knuckle but the joint. So I just thought it was because of dehydration, because my hands were swelling up anyway. And then I banged up my knee, and I'm not going to show you my knee, but at least it wasn't bleeding. And, I think the tights kind of protected me from that. And I just had the wind knocked out of me, and I'm like, oh my God, I just can't do this. And I'm like, Tiffany, I'm sorry. I think I'm gonna have to drop at the next aid station. And I know she was disappointed, but she was all right. I mean, listen, you got to do your own race. But as it turned out, the aid station was much further away than I thought. And then my knee started feeling better, and then I started feeling better. And I'm like, oh, heck with it. I'm just going to go, I'll stay with you, and so we did. And then we continued on. And then the distance between the first aid station and the second one, which is called Damnation, I think it's about 5.5 miles or something like that. And really boring and desolate. And, we talked quite a bit, and she was getting really super cold. And because again, she wasn't really dressed for the weather. It was great in the morning, but as the winds were picking up, and it was kind of spitting rain off and on. And I was sorry, that was my work email. How nice. Anyway, so we continued on, but then I'm like, hey, do you want to use my raincoat? And she's like, oh no, and she thought I was wearing my raincoat. I'm like, no. I said, I've got one in my backpack. And so her hands were so frozen, I had to help her get it on, and we had to take off her hydration pack and refasten it and everything. And anyway, long story short, after a while, she had to start running again because she just was so cold. And I'm like, so we got to the aid station, and I'm like, look, go ahead, don't worry about me, because I was not feeling especially fast, and I knew it was going to take me like 2 hours to probably get to the finish line from there, which is like 6 miles. I mean, because I was probably moving about 3 miles an hour, and again, that was kind of what I was expecting. And so she was not having that, especially having been out there all day. So I think she just wanted to get done, and I'm like, that's fine, just leave the windbreaker, at the finish line, and I'll get it. It's not a big deal. And so she did, and she's like, well, maybe you'll catch me. And I'm like, yeah. And yeah, so at that aid station, I did. Elizabeth hooked me up with some mashed potatoes and ramen broth and some noodles, and I love that stuff. I wouldn't eat it on a normal basis, but for this situation, it was great. So anyway, long story short, I soldiered on. I really considered dropping, and then I thought, well, don't drop it, 6 miles from the finish, you idiot. That's stupid. And so I did. I ran some, I hiked some, I shuffled. I even tried music again. I kind of felt like the Tasmanian devil in that one cartoon where Daffy Duck has to entertain the Tasmanian devil to keep him from going crazy as they trek back from Tasmania. And he's always having to sing to him or play music and stuff. That's what I kind of felt like. And that was my cat, my other one. Yay. Anyway, long story short, yes, I did finish, and I did teach myself something about myself, that I am tougher than I give myself credit for. And it felt good to finish. I mean, I was hurting. I'm still hurting. And of course, I didn't train properly. So I told myself, it's like, I am not going to do this to myself again. It's like, I've got to, if I do one of these again, and there probably will be another time, because I know I can't say no, I'm going to probably train. That's the lesson I learned. So anyway, Tiffany, thanks so much for your support, and I was happy to help you. It was a really good weekend. And also, I think I'm not going to do Mesquite Fire, just because I don't really feel like doing another race in 2 weeks. So I think my legs are going to need a little rest. So anyway, that is all I've got for now. I will see you next time.